On December 23, 2006, Ryan Waller and his girlfriend Heather Quan were having a quiet night at their apartment when there was a knock on the door. Waller cracked it open and a gun was pointed at him. Trying to prevent the intruder from entering, Waller pushed against the door and was shot in the face. Two men walked into the apartment and shot Waller one more time. Then they turned their sights onto Quan, who they shot in the head, killing her. The men grabbed weapons and a computer before leaving. They thought they had killed both occupants, but Waller was still alive. This is the story of the brutal murder of Heather Quan and the eventual death of Ryan Waller a few years later. In 2006, Heather Quan was a 21-year-old college student living in the small town of Desert Hills in Arizona. Everyone that knew her said that she was very friendly. She often spent her weekends volunteering her time with underprivileged children. It was also why she aspired to go to law school and become a defense lawyer, because she loved the idea of professionally helping people that needed her help. She lived in a rental home with her boyfriend, who was 18 years old, and his name was Ryan Waller, and amongst other things, he was a huge gun enthusiast and a student. That year, the couple had made plans to visit Ryan's father on Christmas Day. So, on December the 25th, when they didn't show up and he tried contacting them but couldn't, he just had a feeling that something was off, so he called the local police and asked them to do a welfare check. The police arrived at the house in the Desert Hills, Arizona. They knocked on the door, but there was no answer. They looked in the windows and some lights were on, but it was mostly dark inside. They kept knocking while simultaneously calling out to whoever was inside. After they were done knocking, they heard the deadbolt unlock and the door swung inward into the house, and standing right in front of them was Ryan Waller, and there was a huge bruise on his left eye and a big black cut on his nose, and he was just standing there, not saying anything or asking any questions. Just looking past Ryan and into his house, they saw that there was a girl lying on the couch, which they presumed was his girlfriend, Heather. The police asked Ryan what happened to his face, but he just acted cagey and said, I don't know. But looking at him, the police knew that he wasn't fine at all. They told him that they came for a welfare check and would like to talk to Heather Quan. With Ryan not resisting or saying anything to the cops, walked inside intending to wake Heather up. It was then they discovered that she wasn't actually asleep. She was dead. They looked closely and saw that she had died of a single gunshot to the head, and that she has been dead for a couple of days. Without asking further questions, the police arrested Ryan Waller and brought him out to a squad car. He didn't fight the arrest, but he did empathetically say he didn't know what was going on. He didn't understand what was happening. He didn't know what happened to Heather. He just seemed generally confused. But regardless, he was thrown in the back of the police car outside the property, and he would sit there for several hours while more and more police and paramedics arrived to process the crime scene and also to transfer Heather's body to a morgue. Around 5 a.m. on December the 25th, the police brought Ryan to the Phoenix police station for questioning. The interrogation that followed this hour-long interrogation was filmed would start off relatively normal, but would quickly devolve into this totally bizarre back and forth between Ryan and the detective who was questioning him. And then, at the end of the interrogation, there would be this stunning revelation. Before they questioned him, they reportedly took 43 pictures of his injuries. From the start, the detective didn't believe anything Ryan was saying. His answers didn't make sense due to his serious head injury. He tells the detective interviewing him that he was shot in the eye. The detective scoffed at his declaration and told him that if he had been shot in the eye, then he wouldn't be sitting there, he would be dead. Ryan kept asking if he could go home and go to bed, to which the detective told him he wouldn't be going home. Critical time kept ticking away, and the nonsensical responses didn't help matters. For some reason, it took the detective a really long time to figure out why the young man sitting before him was failing to make cohesive statements. Part of the problem with the interrogation was that Ryan did drop some truths about the actual perpetrators. He mentioned the name of Richie Carver, who was an old roommate of his. Ryan told the police that it was Carver who shot them, but within his nonsensical statements, this was initially dismissed. 6 hours after the Phoenix police discovered Ryan and Heather's body, the interviewing detective realized that something bad had happened to Ryan. The detective moved closer to him and started taking inventory of his injuries. When he grabbed his head, Ryan whimpered that his head hurt really bad. The tough-talking detective immediately became caring and said he was going to have a paramedic take a look at his injuries. At that moment, he realized that Ryan had probably been shot and uncuffed him. It is still unclear why it took the police so long to recognize the dire situation Ryan was in. Possibly because they thought he was responsible for killing his girlfriend, but even so, he still should have been given medical attention. After being transported to the hospital, Ryan had to be rushed into surgery. He lost both of his eyes, some sources say just his left eye, and a large portion of his brain. The staff determined he had indeed been shot twice in the head. The bullet had pierced Ryan's skull, puncturing his sinus, bone and brain, and the meal was slowly infiltrating his brain. He went blind and spent the rest of his life reliant on his parents. The strength he showed through the whole ordeal did end up helping the police. They sought Richie Carver, Ryan's old roommate, and his father Larry for the crime. Ryan would suffer seizures as a result of his injuries. His life would never be close to the same. 10 years after the ordeal, he died from a seizure. He was 28 years old. The Carvers would be apprehended a short time later. The motives for the shooting vary. Some have said that Ryan and Richie had got into a physical altercation while they were roommates that ended with both men pointing guns at each other. Others have said that Richie hit on Heather, leading Ryan to kick him out of their apartment. There is very little information available on the aspects of the actual crime. In June 2008, Richie would be convicted of felony murder, burglary, aggravated assault, and misconduct involving weapons. His sentence was a term of natural life. Larry would initially get off because most of the evidence used against him was based on a confession he gave his wife. When she invoked her right of marital privilege and refused to testify, Larry would remain free. Heather's family appealed to Arizona legislators to use what would become known as Heather's Law to revoke the marital privilege law. After a legal battle over whether the law could apply retroactively to Larry Carver's case, the court ruled in favor of the state and Carver was re-indicted in November 2011 on first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, burglary, and aggravated assault. Following a 10-day trial, the jury deliberated for 2.5 days before reaching a verdict of guilty on all counts. Heather's Law amended the marital privilege statute to compel a defendant's spouse to testify by providing an exception to the privilege if one spouse voluntarily provides police with information about the other spouse's involvement in a serious crime. The murderer behind Heather's Law, Larry Carver, was found guilty by a Maricopa County jury with the 2006 murder of Heather M. Quan and the attempted murder of her boyfriend, Ryan T. Waller. This verdict is a long-awaited milestone on what has been a torturous and difficult road to justice for the victims of this terrible crime, requiring an extraordinary detour through our state legislature, said Maricopa County Attorney Bill Montgomery. We now await the imposition of a sentence that will appropriately hold this defendant accountable for his criminal actions, he added. Ryan's family didn't file any case against the Arizona police over the negligence of their son's health, but they did upload the video of the interrogation on YouTube and later said that they are happy that justice has been served on their son's murderers, that filing a case against the police won't bring Ryan or Heather back.